Welcome to the Region Free Gamers podcast. My name's Paul, and today we may have been seriously wounded,
but the soul still burns.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Region Free Gamers podcast, the podcast that's fluent in gaming. Today we're just going to be catching up with each other and talking about which Yakuza game we've been playing lately. No, I'm just kidding. But first
come on,
of all,
Paul, we really are.
yeah, I mean, let's be realistic. I'm sure it'll come up. But yeah, first of all, I mean, as always, hey, thanks for listening, guys. It's actually been almost a year since we've been doing this podcast, and it's been a lot of fun putting it together. But obviously it would be less fun if we didn't have people listening and engaging with us. So, hey, thanks again for joining us. And if you enjoy what you hear, please leave us a rating and a review on the Apple Podcast app or whichever app you're using to listen to us. And of course, I don't know, go to your garage and find your finest sledgehammer and take aim for that subscribe button. A nice two-handed swing. Make sure you do that.
Yeah, just go all office space on that subscribe button.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Definitely.
Load up some of that hip-hop and just go nuts on that subscribe button.
Yep.
But anyhow, yeah, so before we move on to catching up with all the guys, my co-hosts today, to the north of me, out of Helsinki, Masa.
Howdy, y'all.
And howdy, eh?
It's gonna make sense later, like when we get to the game.
Okay.
It's gonna make total sense.
I thought that was some, like, very specific local Finnish dialect or something.
Yeah, I think I gotta work on my Texan accent.
And to the east of me, out of New York City, Ozzy.
Hey everyone, it's Ozzy.
And to the south of me, out of Virginia, Arnie.
I'd just like to wish all of our listeners a very Merry Christmas, because it's that time of year.
Dude, you're a little early.
No, actually, I'm pretty late, considering that it's already not Halloween, and therefore it's Christmas time.
Oh yeah,
according to
yeah.
every local store that I've been to.
Every single one of them.
Dude, it's insane.
Well,
it's
now
man.
it's like Thanksgiving, so people are like all dressed up in Thanksgiving deck. So I don't know about you, Arnie, but I'm still getting that holiday out of the way. After Thanksgiving, all bets are off.
Now,
Everybody...
do you guys like have Thanksgiving costumes or anything?
No.
I wish.
Hey, sadly, like, we don't even celebrate. Like, we actually adopted Black Friday from you guys, but never actually Thanksgiving, so we only got the commercial one. Sorry.
Oh, man, that's so lame. I have to admit, like, Thanksgiving, any excuse to eat a lot of food, I'm down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, and
really
I think
is.
it's become about the food lately because people don't want to think too much about the reason why Thanksgiving exists. They're like, oh yeah, that kind of sucks. So hey guys, how about some food? How about some turkey?
Yeah. Let's forget about all the
millions of slaughtered Native Americans. That we have to reckon with every year.
This podcast started off so happy.
I was gonna say this has immediately gone off the rails.
Oh, it all started rainbows and sparkles. And
Welcome back, Paul. I hope you missed us.
We were optimistic there for a few minutes.
Yeah, and now it's just downhill.
Hey, but it's a System of Miracles coming up, where we buy a bunch of games and we play them, and we basically have hot cocoa all the time. So.
Oh yeah, is this the point? Like, really often when you have a podcast, at some point, like the people kind of like lose focus and they start talking about like all kinds of random stuff, talking about their personal lives and stuff. Is this the moment where Region Free Gamers stops being about video games? And in the next episode we will talk about Finland's Independence Day. There's gonna be the Christmas episode and so on.
In the next episode we talk about our impending divorces.
Oh my god! No, we'll just call it the Region Free Nonsense podcast.
There you go.
And people can take from that what they will. But I mean, look, it's the first time we've been on a podcast, all four of us together, in months now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it must have been, yeah.
It certainly feels like that.
Yeah, it seems like everyone we've recorded now, at least one of us has been missing. So, I
Well,
don't
Paul,
know.
you,
It's
you were
pretty
in
cool.
a long, far away trip. You were trying to find yourself, and so like Batman, like Bruce Wayne, you were
Yeah.
trying to see, who you could be your inner self. And
I didn't even I was in Nepal and I didn't find Raj Al Ghul. So
well, you
yeah,
found
I don't know, man.
you found the cold, so that's
I
almost
basically
as good.
found the
Didn't
Yeah.
you find your like a new nemesis for yourself?
Well, Masa,
Let's not get into that.
Yeah,
let's not.
This is the
Let's
point in the
just say the trip-
podcast where the band's broken up and we're doing our 20th year reunion.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, all I did was catch some kind of Nepalese flu of some sort. That was like the only souvenir I brought home. That and a lot of sad stories.
I went to Nepal and all I got was a stupid cold.
Yeah. I should put that on a t-shirt actually.
So video games, eh?
Yeah, video games. We talk about those too. Ozzy, what have you been playing lately, man?
Oh man, I didn't expect to be the first one. No. I guess we could do two or three. I guess for the first one, since we started off so pessimistic, I might as well talk about something that is not pessimistic. I've been playing Tetris Effect, and that seems, like a weird game to lead off with, but as you know, I live in the US, and a lot of horrible things have been happening in the US, and I remember I downloaded the Tetris Effect demo right after I had found out some, terrible news that had happened here in the United States. And I was like, I can't deal with this anymore. I just gotta play some Tetris and just zone out. And, dude, it's one of the most transcendental, relaxing, spiritual experiences that you could ever have with a video game, honestly. I put my headphones on, and I just basically zoned out. And it was for an hour. I didn't even realize an hour had passed, and I was just, figuring out falling blocks. And it was just, I hit that zen-like zone in Tetris that we all know about. And, everything in the world just kind of faded away for a moment. And I think it's the game that we really need now. I think it was Kotaku that mentioned it, and I completely agreed with it. I said, yeah, this is, for a lot of us, considering how many terrible things are happening in the world, you play video games sometimes just to escape that, and it might seem selfish, but sometimes you just need that little bit of self-care. And Tetris Effect, it's done by Tetsuya Mizuguchi, and if you guys don't know him, he did Space Channel 5. He's a Sega, veteran that eventually left Sega, and then he did the Luminous series, and also Child of Eden, and a lot of trippy games that merge music and gameplay. Res is kind of his biggest work, probably his masterpiece, and he tries to achieve that level of synesthesia. And Tetris Effect, it's Tetris. We played Tetris for over 30 years now, and it still feels fresh. So I don't know. I would. It's potentially my game of the year, to be perfectly honest. So
That's remarkable.
yeah, I think it's fantastic. When I first heard about it, I said, I'm going to have to get this because it's Tetsuya Mizuguchi doing Tetris. And I know Mizuguchi has been wanting to do Tetris for years now. He wanted to do it before Luminous and he couldn't, so he just did Luminous instead, which was great for us, because Luminous is fantastic. So, it's good to see that they did a great job with it. And if you play it in PlayStation VR, it must be amazing, because...
Oh, man.
Yeah, because all the trippy visuals and the thing that you don't realize when you first play it is that true to Mizuguchi, the music starts going with the gameplay. And so when you flip the tetrominoes, the music, I don't know how they achieve it, but the music goes in beat with the way that you press, the switch of the tetrominoes. It just goes along with the beat. And so, I don't know, it just achieves this level of just pure beauty that I just can't compare to any other game, honestly, short of Res or something like that. So, if you guys haven't played it, definitely try it. I know it's $40 and, Masa's probably thinking, oh, I'm too cheap for that.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I was like, I've watched a bunch of videos of that game and it looks amazing. That literally looks like the best, Tetris game ever. And I'm dying to play it, but then I saw the price tag and I was like, maybe I should wait.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I saw it and I was also like, man, am I willing to pay $40 for Tetris? I was like, screw it, man. You know?
But yeah, I gotta say,
yeah.
it's really cool that it's your, like, a potential Game of the Year candidate because, okay, so we are now entering the Game of the Year season, basically. And I know a lot of picks will be Red Dead 2, God of War, Spider-Man, and so on. So I really like it when there's, like, a bit more, like, left field, choices.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an absolutely non-violent game, which, like I said, I just needed that, honestly. And I still haven't picked up Red Dead 2, Masa, and I know you have, and we're going to talk about it later. But, I really want to play it, but a big part of me is like, I just don't want to deal with the violence right now. I just want to play a game where I just, match, falling blocks. That's all.
Yeah, I gotta say about that, it's actually interesting how, okay, I'm not gonna get into detail about Red Dead quite yet, but I actually, for the first time in a Rockstar game, because usually like when I play GTA, for example, I just want to wreak havoc and, destroy cars and, kill people and stuff. Okay, I made myself sound like a horrible maniac.
You sure did.
Yeah. But in Red Dead, I just wanna, I don't know, greet people peacefully and, live my life like a normal dude instead of like being like a horrible outlaw. So
Masa, that's just called getting older. Yeah, that's just called getting older, dude. You're like, I just want to say howdy to people. That's all I want to do with life.
Well, that was the thing. That was the thing when like Spider-Man came out too. Like everybody was like, "Oh, you can like say hi to people and you can take selfies and stuff." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I guess this is the thing that people enjoy doing now, like in games, because you could do that too in Final Fantasy 15. You could take like pictures and people really seem to enjoy." Just being able to futz around, like whether it's blowing stuff up or whether it's, taking pictures and, being goofy.
Well, I've realized that for a lot of people, it's just that photo mode is one of the biggest draws. Like, I know so many people played around with the Horizon Zero Dawn photo mode and the Uncharted photo mode, and now with Spider-Man and God of War. I mean, there's, I think, an effect in God of War, the new one, where you can take Kratos' beard off or something like that. Or maybe I'm just imagining that, but I find that to be hilarious. So, which by the way, I'm picking up God of War today, so that should be interesting.
But yeah, I have to admit, in Yakuza 6 you can also take selfies, and I didn't get the appeal at first because in real life I never take selfies. But I mean, I have like probably like 1 million selfies on my Yakuza 6 save file.
Well, Masa,
even Wind Waker, like the HD version of it,
you
can take selfies on.
That was
love
great.
it.
But Masa, you know the appeal of it. You wanna have Kiryu take a very serious picture in front of something ridiculous. That's exactly the appeal of it.
Oh, dude, 100%.
Yeah. But no, I mean, look, you guys should really play Tetris. Like, going back to that, you guys should really play it. I really recommend it. Honestly, I haven't felt that good about playing a game in a long time. Like, I've enjoyed games, of course, but this one just made me like spiritually feel better, which is kind of something weird to say about a video game.
Well, Tetris has that like right brain zone out effect, right? Like that's like the classic Tetris thing is you start playing it and you just zone out and lose track of time.
Well, that's what's called the Tetris effect, where you stop playing Tetris and then you keep seeing the falling blocks in your head. And that happened to me. Like that night I was still seeing all the blocks falling. And this is even more because there are so many sensory overload experiences that you have to take in. So by the end of it, you're just like, oh man, I think I just did some transcendental meditation or something. So anyways, I'm not going to turn into a yogi all of a sudden.
I saw gameplay of it and it looked super fun. And I mean, that's what I've heard it described as, is like Lumens meets Tetris. And the fact that you can play it in VR, like that's what I want to do. I want to play it in VR.
All right,
let's
like
biggest draw for me too. Yeah.
Let's settle something, Arnie, because you just said lumens, and I call it luminous, and my friend called it lumines. What the hell, guys?
I don't know which one of us is right, but I know that he is wrong.
It's luminous. They mention it in Electronic Symphony. They actually mention it.
They do say it. Okay.
It's luminous.
No, they only had a weird accent.
Oh, yeah, well, maybe. Perhaps.
I would say that the most common usage is the correct one. Language is ultimately utilitarian, right? So
That's true.
Man, we're getting philosophical on this one. And the other game I've been playing is an old ditty, and off the back of our recent episode, I've been playing Resident Evil 4. And
cool.
I don't know why it took me that long to play that game, dudes. I don't know why. I think there was something about me and the fact that so many games kind of copied that style, and I just saw it as, this kind of looks, like the same games I've been playing, later. And I played Resident Evil 5 first, and that game left a really sour taste in my mouth, so I was just like, I don't need to play Resident Evil 4. But I played it, and I was like, holy shit, I get it. This is fantastic. And I think the moment it clicked for me is when I realized that the game wasn't meant to be taken seriously. It was very much a B-movie, and it just didn't take itself seriously, which is something that Resident Evil 5 didn't get the memo for. So, for example, after you have survived a whole, villager attack on you, you have this chainsaw-wielding maniac, following you, and you just barely survived it. Everyone leaves when the bells start ringing, and Leon's just, in the middle of it, it's like, I guess no one invited me to the party, And that's when I realized, oh, this game doesn't really take itself seriously. Oh, I'm really gonna like this. But, it feels smooth. I don't know, it feels like very much a modern game still. And I'm very much enjoying it. And I'm playing it on the PS2, which I think in hindsight, it was a terrible decision because out of all the old systems, I think the PS2 is the one that, has aged most poorly in terms of image quality, because a lot of the games, they couldn't really project in 480. I mean, they didn't really do 480p, and so the most they could do was 480i, and that presents a very muddy, blurry picture. And literally after playing for an hour, my head and eyes started hurting because I couldn't really tell things in the distance or really get detail. And even for the time, the PS2 graphics weren't great. GameCube was the way to play that game, and the PS2 was just trying to catch up, basically. And so I think in hindsight, I kind of made the wrong decision, but I didn't have the GameCube version, and I didn't want to play it in HD. So I guess I'm stuck with it, and now I'm really far into it, so I guess I just gotta keep playing it. So, I don't know, have you guys played this recently?
Recently,
no.
no. I haven't even ever played it, dude. The only experience I have with Resident Evil 4 is seeing it at a friend's house, where they were like, you gotta see Resident Evil 4. And then I saw it, and I was like, wow, this looks great. I can't wait to not play it.
Seems to be your entire experience with Resident Evil, Paul.
Seems to be, yeah.
Well, when they didn't release it on the Saturn, Paul was like, I'm absolutely not playing this.
Yeah, that was a fatal move for them.
Pretty much, yeah.
Masa, have you played it?
I played the PS2 version many, many years ago.
Do you recall enjoying it?
What?
Do you recall enjoying it?
Oh, yeah. It's actually the only Resident Evil game that I've played. And, yeah, I mean, it's fun. I actually, no, I did play 1 or 2, but those I did really enjoy. But yeah, 4, it's one of the very few, horror games that I actually enjoy. But I wouldn't call it one of my, all-time favorites or anything. And it's been many years since I last played it. I actually bought the PS4 remaster recently, but I haven't played it yet, so yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. And just to round it off, let me just say that the other game I've been playing and not playing anymore is No Man's Sky. And let me tell you about my tragic story with No Man's Sky. So they recently released an underwater update, and I was like, that looks really cool. I like being underwater. I love Soma, so why don't I play No Man's Sky? And so I bought it because it was cheap. It was $19. And so I started playing, and the first you had to repair your ship, and you had to dig around for resources and the like. And I was like, okay, this is fine. I mean, it feels like Minecraft or something, like resource gathering or whatever. And I started playing it, and you started feeling monotony of, I'm not sure if I'm enjoying this. I'm just kind of going through the motions of what the game is telling me to do. But I wanted to get out of the planet. And so I started, I got out of the planet. I started hitting up a few other planets. And it was really cool. I'm the only one to see this planet. It's procedurally generated. Everything is kind of unique to your experience. And you just discovered a brand new planet from this massive universe. And so I was like, oh, this is really cool. And so I went to my first planet, and then on second planet, I'm like, oh, that planet looks really, really cool. It has like these rings, and it's pretty big, it's massive, and it looks dark. And so I get there, and, like 5 minutes later, because traveling from and to planets takes a long time, and so I feel like I'm wasting my time. And I get there, and there's just nothing on the planet. The planet is just barren. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, let me check it out. So I land, and there's like no gravity, so I jump really high. And so I'm like, okay, there's really not much to see in this planet, but I wanted to keep exploring it. And so I started seeing the subterranean cave systems. And I'm like, all right, let me go in it with a plane, with my spaceship. And so I start going into the spaceship, and until I get into this space that I cannot go back from. And so my spaceship just, destroys itself. Like, I just die. And so when you die in No Man's Sky, your spaceship has to be repaired. So I respawn in the planet in which there's nothing, and I need to repair my spaceship. And I need this very specific element in order to repair my spaceship. Dude, I went for 2 hours going every which way on this planet, and there's just nothing. Nothing. And I'm just like, I don't want to lose my game. Like, I already started playing this. And it's like, I can't get out of here. I literally can't get out of here because I had to repair my spaceship for 2 hours. And after 2 hours, I was like, you know what? That's it. I'm done. And so I kept walking for a little bit longer, and I found this really interesting looking plant. I shoot it, and then this massive Cthulhu fucking monsters come out of me.
What the fuck?
I'm like, what the fuck? And I died, of course. And I'm like, look, that's my canon. I started out, and my spaceship exploration career just ended up with me stranded on a desert planet, and getting killed by Cthulhu monsters. So that's it. I turned it off, never turned it on again. So
you died as you
dude,
lived.
that's insane. I would do the same thing. I wouldn't turn it on again. Like, you can't. Oh man, there's so much to unpack there. Like, I wouldn't make a game, first of all, where you could enable a save state.
It was
where
a fail
there's no
state.
coming back from.
Yeah, it was
right?
a fail state completely.
Yeah, like that's kind of unacceptable. Which
And I
is
was
a
like,
shame,
is the game really doing this to me?
yeah.
And it did.
Now, with that said, the idea of shooting a plant and then a giant monster coming out of it is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. Except I didn't have any tools because I was just starting out my space career. So,
and also when it comes to being stranded on a different planet, this sounds a lot more entertaining than that Matt Damon movie.
Oh my god!
Well,
you totally write a movie script based on your No Man's Sky experience.
Honestly, there's a morbid side of me that wants to go back to it and start it fresh just to have more experiences like this where I'm just like, yeah, so this happened, guys.
See, I think that what you should have done is embrace your new life on this planet and sort of make it like a Castaway sort of situation.
Oh my god, yes.
Yeah,
that would have been great.
The problem is you can't build. So, because you can't build, you can't really do things like that. And, because it's an uninhabitable planet, you have to constantly be getting mining oxygen, resources and stuff like that because you're constantly, your oxygen is constantly depleting. I can't stress enough. This was a barren planet. I wasn't meant to be here. I was meant to just see it and be like, okay, I saw it. I'm gone. I just never expected Cthulhu monsters to come out of this planet. And now I know why the planet was so dark. It was like, I basically just went to the high level area, at the beginning, basically.
Yeah.
So anyways, so that's my experience with No Man's Sky. Play it, guys. Maybe we'll have another story
Did you
later.
buy the game when it first came out, or did you buy it recently?
No, I bought it 2 weeks ago, dude.
Oh, okay.
Literally.
Yeah,
and
after they had done all the big updates and stuff.
But dude, I shit you not. It was literally 2 hours of me walking in a desert planet. I'm not kidding, dude. And it was just
so you were playing Journey, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, I was just about to say that sounds like an unfun version of Journey.
Dude, Journey at least had some sort of hook. Journey was 2 hours long. That's it. And
exactly. So you played it.
And you reached apotheosis, in those 2 hours. I reached nothing. Nothing. I reached disappointment and Cthulhu monsters.
So basically our advice should be that, just like don't get that game and buy Journey instead.
I say that's the advice for everything, dude.
I know, right? God, I enjoy the part where you call it a space career, because I could envision this guy going to a bar and he tries to pick up a girl and she's like, "What do you do? Like, what's your career?" And he'll just be like, "Space."
just
and then that'll
space.
be it.
Listen, I don't know. Let me tell you something about myself. I've always had this weird fascination with being a space trucker. I've always wanted to be a space trucker. I don't know if that's because of Cowboy Bebop or, the many space, movies I've seen, but I've always just wanted to have, a space career and just playing old school classic rock and roll in the background, and just haul things like minerals or something like that. Which means that something like Elite Dangerous is like perfect for me. But and that's the reason why I haven't gotten it, because my girlfriend's going to walk in one day and it's like, "Oh my God, you haven't shaved in like a week. Have you even eaten anything?" It's like, "No, I'm hauling this thing. It's taken me a week to get to this planetary system."
I couldn't agree more. Like, I've had Elite Dangerous on my radar for so long because I just want to like fly through space and trade and, do stuff that on paper sounds really boring, but in my brain is endlessly fascinating. And I haven't picked up Elite Dangerous because, like, I'll probably fall in and never come out.
Yeah, and especially with virtual reality, dude. I mean, with virtual reality, it's like I don't need to go into the outside world anymore. That's it. I could just be a space trucker.
I think there's a whole generation of people who just want to be like Han Solo or want to be, Spike from Cowboy Bebop, essentially. Like,
yeah, but they were shooting people. I don't want to shoot people. I just want to haul shit.
I do too. That's why I'm saying, like, I've also had this like perfect game where I'm like, I just fly through space and I just like, mess around and like give people shit and trade.
Yeah. And then a space pirate comes in and then you're stuck because you lost all your cargo.
Exactly.
I find that utterly fascinating. That's why there isn't a space game that I will not immediately be interested in. Like something like that game that is being worked on by Chris Roberts that has been in production for like 5 years. Like, it's easy to like be like, those guys are assholes. They're just taking everyone's money. But a part of me is like, but boy, if they really achieve that, if they really make a space game that is just a space game to end all space games, then oh my God, they discovered the essence of life basically for me. So,
well, let me tell you, man, there is no end to the selection on these kind of games on Steam. Like, they are out there.
I know. There's FTL, there's Rogue Galaxy, the thing is, I don't play games on PC. And I know I'm a heretic for that, but I just don't play games on PC. I'm just a console gamer. So that's why No Man's Sky is so interesting. And Elite Dangerous is actually on PS4. So at some point, I might get that and then never come back. And then they're going to be like, whatever happened to that guy, that was on the show? And it's like, oh yeah, he started his space career. So he's just never come back. Yeah, guys. Anyways, that's right, my story.
Well, cool, man. That's a cautionary tale for us all on which game not to buy.
Don't get stranded on a deserted planet, please. That's yes, all I will tell you.
Please don't.
Just turn back.
But on that note, we should probably take a break. So yeah, we'll be back in a minute with some more of what we've been playing.
We embark on this ride to find out who we are. We look up to the sky to find out who we are. We embark on this ride to find out who we are. We look up to the sky to realize.
All right, and we're back. And now I want to hear what Masa's been playing lately.
Alright, so I'm gonna start with Dark Souls Remastered. And this is once again one of those Masa stories that starts with like, I got drunk the other night. and things happened. Okay, so some time ago, Nintendo had this network test for Dark Souls Remastered. And like Dark Souls or the Soulsborne series has always been something that I've been curious about, but basically I haven't had balls to try any of those games out.
Yeah.
Especially since I was like, yeah, maybe these are not my kind of games. Especially since I have the patience of a 5-year-old with the reflexes of a 55-year-old. So that's not a good combination for, Soulsborne games. But yeah, before I start talking about the game, have you guys played any Soulsborne games?
I have. I played all of them, actually. And the one I played least is actually Dark Souls 1, so it's good that you're talking about it. And the reason why I played that least is because I hit the Asylum demon and I couldn't beat it for like 10 times. And I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm not playing this anymore. But Bloodborne is probably, in my top 3 games of this generation. Right up there with The Witcher 3. So I absolutely prefer the Bloodborne, faster paced style. And Dark Souls 3 is also a fantastic, terrific game. And I think I already talked about that. But yeah.
I actually think that Bloodborne would probably be a lot better for me. But yeah, what happened to me was that, I started playing the game. And basically I had the worst, experience of my gaming life. Like everything about that game sucked. Okay, so basically, like, first of all, the game looks ugly. Okay, so I have now learned to appreciate the style of the game a bit more, but like the first time I played, I was like, everything looks really dark and kind of like muddy and ugly. Yeah. And then the controls, okay, so now I know that it's mainly because I, chose the wrong character class for me, and the controls were like really janky and slow. The difficulty was just ridiculous. And I actually like had this like alcohol-filled rant on Instagram. I'm not sure if you guys saw it, like in my Instagram stories.
I definitely saw it.
Yeah. And okay, so usually like when I do my little, like I post my little thoughts on, Instagram stories, I might get like a couple of direct messages about them, but then the next day I woke up to like 30 fucking messages. And a lot of people were like, surprisingly, no one, wished me to die or anything like that. But a lot of them were like, yeah, I agree, it's a really bad game, it's so overrated. But then there were also lots of people who were like, you just like if you want some tips, I can help you out. Like, it's not a bad game, but most people who play Dark Souls, like, have that very same experience as you did. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And I was a bit hungover and I guess I was feeling a bit emotional and stuff. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should give the game another chance. And I had actually deleted that, the network test demo of my Switch, because I don't know. I don't even remember the last time I was like so pissed off because of a video game. Yeah. Like I seriously I felt like the game had stolen my girlfriend and stabbed me in the back and burned my game collection. I was like so offended.
But see, I think that's like part of the mechanic of Dark Souls, right? It's like the game that's designed to like kick your teeth in like right away.
Yeah.
And what happened, Masa? So did you keep playing it?
What happened was that, okay, so the next day, I downloaded the demo again, and played it. And then, okay, so I wouldn't say that I had fun playing it, but it wasn't as bad as when I was, playing it drunk, which is so word of advice, like, the first time you play Dark Souls, like, don't get drunk, because bad things will happen. You will die. I mean, you will die anyways, but it's just. Well,
I think that's just a general advice, Masa. Just don't get drunk in life. So you liked it more the second time?
What?
You liked it more the second time?
And the weird thing was that after I played the game for like an hour. I made some progress, and the next day. Like I just said, that I wouldn't say that I had a lot of fun playing it, but still, like, I couldn't stop thinking about the game. And I was at work, not working, but I started watching all these videos and I started reading about the game, and I was like, yeah, I really want to play it again. I don't know why, because I really had my experience with the game, but I want to play it again. And then I ended up buying it. Okay, so I now have a love-hate relationship with the game because there's so much good stuff in that game. For example, like the world, it's such a well-designed world.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, and the whole thing, it kind of reminds me of Breath of the Wild in a way that you can basically go anywhere. There's no hand-holding, there's no tutorials or anything like that, which makes the game a bit more confusing at times. But as you progress in the game, like you open up all these really cool shortcuts, which are some of the most what the fuck kind of moments. It's like, you let's say you travel quite some time, and then all of a sudden you open this shortcut, which it feels like it takes you back I don't know, a few kilometers kinda. It's like, wait, I came here? What the hell? How is that even possible? So yeah, the game world is really well designed. And the combat system, now that I know how to play it kinda, it's not that bad and I enjoy it. But the problem with that game is that, okay, so I'm not very good at it. And yeah, it is difficult. It gets easier as you progress and you level up, you get better gear. But the thing is that, okay, so there's lots of trial and error bullshit. The first time something happens, you might die because you didn't know that there was a badass dragon which, comes out of nowhere and just burns you down. But then the next time you're like, oh, okay, so I know not to go that way. But yeah, basically,
how does a dragon just come out of nowhere? Wouldn't it's rather large,
dude? It's really like that. It just comes out of nowhere. It just appears.
It just annihilates you.
It's like a guacamole.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you have a dragon on your face.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like in RPGs when you run into that one enemy that you don't think is any different, and then you hit it for 1 damage, and you're like, oh shit.
Oh, I'm done.
And just wrecks your face.
No, but Masa, I mean, there's something weirdly alluring about the Soulsborne games. It's I don't know what they did. I don't know what type of black magic they've conjured, but it's you hate the experience, but it's but I just want to keep playing it. Why do I hate myself? And it's just like that. That's been my experience with every single Souls game. When I'm not playing them, I'm thinking about playing them. And I'm thinking about how I'm going to finally beat that boss. It's insane, and there have been moments where I've just been okay, I just got to tell myself to stop because it's just unhealthy. But it's weird how weirdly alluring those games are.
It seems like from the people I've seen who have played them, because I don't hate myself enough to subject myself to it yet. But it also seems like the opposite is also true, where it's very hard and it's very frustrating, but when you do something, it feels so much better than doing something in maybe a game that it would have been easier in. You know what I mean? When you do beat that boss, it's the greatest high.
Well, let me tell you, I don't consider the game to be cheap. It's not cheaply hard.
It's not, no.
So a lot of people, when you actually start getting better at it, things start clicking. They say that it's a hard game. Yes, it's a hard game, but it's a game that you can actually get better at. So, because it's not cheap. Whenever you die, you know exactly what happened. And it's about studying the boss patterns and making sure that you have the quick reflexes to do it. And if, you're getting older like me, then, you're kind of potentially foreclosing yourself from playing these games because your reflexes are no longer there. But it's not cheap. I don't consider it.
Yeah, and I would say about the difficulty also. Okay, so what I actually both hate and love about the game is that, okay, you can grind, and in many games, you can basically win by grinding enough, and to the point when you become over leveled. But in Dark Souls, for example, I thought that I could just grind, which is why I've been progressing very slowly. But it's not really the case. I feel like you can't really get over leveled. Yeah, sure, you can, for example, take down bosses faster. but still, for example, I feel like I'm like, okay, let's say kinda over-leveled for the place where I'm at right now, but still, if I'm not being careful, and like you really have to stay alert at all times, but like if I'm not being careful, like even like normal, like let's say like the weaker enemies can kill me easily and really fucking fast too. And especially like if they gang up on you, then yeah, you might die in a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
And that's why I really can play the game for more than maybe like an hour at a time, because it's really fucking stressful.
Yeah.
It's not like, let's say, in a lot of action games, like Yakuza, for example, like the normal mobs, they are just there to give you something to do. Like they aren't challenging. You just beat them up and, you get experience points or money or whatever, but they aren't really a challenge. But in Dark Souls, like, yeah, you just have to be on top of your game at all times or else you will die.
Yep. No, that's exactly what it is. And I haven't played very much Dark Souls. I played a little bit of Dark Souls 3, and I think Arnie hit it right on the head. It's hard as hell, but when you do beat that boss or whatever, like I was playing it with a buddy of mine, and when we finally beat that first boss, when we finally beat that first boss, we like cheered and high-fived. How often does that happen?
Oh, dude, it's amazing. That's the experience that you seek the most in those games. I remember when I played with my brother in Bloodborne, and I think I mentioned this in another episode, and it was just one of the most raucous moments ever when we finally took down the boss. It's amazing, especially if you play it with someone else. It's just a great experience.
Oh yeah, that I have to mention that. You can play the game online, and you can there's a co-op mode basically, and that makes the game, at least like personally for me, because I'm not very good at the game, it makes it like so much more fun, like playing with someone else. And especially like if the other person like kind of like knows what they're doing, because I definitely don't know, and I just keep dying all the time. But yeah, that co-op mode definitely makes it more tolerable for me personally. Like I know that a lot of people are like, no, that's not the true experience, like you have to, take down these bosses on your own. But like I said, I mean, I don't have patience and my reflexes are gone, so yeah.
And meanwhile, the person you're playing with is like, geez, this guy's fucking terrible.
Yeah. Most likely, yeah.
Yeah, have you been playing something else, Masa?
Yes, and it's a bit of a bummer that I didn't play this game before, because we actually talked about this game in a recent episode. So yeah, Dragon Quest XI, and oh my god, what a game! God damn it! Like I really like. We should invite Luke again, because I really want to talk about the game with him. But okay, so I feel like Dragon Quest XI is the game that Ni no Kuni 2 should have been. And it's one of those games that really, it makes me feel like a kid again. And the game, I really love RPGs, and especially like the kind of RPGs where it feels like you're on this like huge grand adventure, and you travel across like all these different lands and fight all kinds of like different monsters. And yeah, Dragon Quest XI, it's interesting how it's a very, very traditional game, and maybe even to a fault. Like there are like definitely like some things that I wish that would have been like modernized, but maybe the hardcore Dragon Quest fans wouldn't have liked that. But overall, it's an amazing game, and absolutely like one of the best JRPGs of this generation. The graphics are just out of this world. It's easily the most beautiful anime style JRPG that I've ever played. All the towns are really like just full of life. They are colorful. They have their own styles. Like you have it's great because they are all based on like, different countries. Like there's let's say a Spanish town. There's Italy. There's, a French, like villa and so on. So yeah, it's quite something.
Is there a Canada? Is everybody really polite there?
There's actually, it's interesting. There's of course this wintry world, but I think it's actually based on Sweden. Which
really?
I don't,
Sweden guys? Come on!
As a Finn, I don't really appreciate that. I was like, yeah, you should have, come to Finland for that one. But, but it's, okay, so like nowadays when I play games, I'm often quite critical about them. And I know if I'm not like absolutely like in love with the game, I kind of like start looking for flaws in them. But in Dragon Quest XI, I have to say that there's only like one major flaw, and that's the soundtrack. Like, that's literally the only thing that I don't like about the game.
I've heard complaints about that before.
Yeah, first of all, the problem is that the composer, Koichi Sugiyama, is a total douchebag for many reasons, but I'm not gonna get into those like more serious reasons, because you can just Google that. Point is he's not a very good person, but also, the soundtrack is not orchestrated. It's a MIDI soundtrack, which is ridiculous if you think about it like nowadays. And that's for the reason...
No, dude, I disagree. I haven't heard it, but now I'm actually even more interested.
Really?
Yeah, because like it's a throwback like everything else in that game. I miss video game music. Like, I know we shit on Final Fantasy 15 seemingly all the time here, but like Final Fantasy 15 is the first example I thought of where it has kind of like this, flowy ambient soundtrack that kind of it kind of changes a little bit when you fight, but there aren't any like catchy tunes, and it doesn't really it doesn't take me back, you know what I mean? Like, when I think of video game music, I think Persona 5 is probably like the best marriage of like specific tracks for specific situations, with, an orchestra being provided. But I think there's definitely an appeal to, sort of a MIDI, more classic video game soundtrack.
But I would have to say, like, the reason behind that thing is that why there's no orchestrated soundtrack is that apparently, like, the composer actually wants to protect his own concert and CD sales. So that people would have a reason to actually, like, go see his concerts or buy the soundtracks. Yeah. But yeah, my main issue, like a lot of the music in that game is very generic, and I actually played Dragon Quest Builders earlier this year, and then I've been playing Dragon Quest XI, and I'm like, oh my god, a lot of these songs were actually in Dragon Quest Builders. Like, what the hell? Like, I have heard all these songs, and it's weird how there's basically, at least, I think there's like 6 hours of music in that game, at least according to YouTube. But the problem is that seemingly there's only like 5 songs. Like, there's a battle song, and then, I don't know, like some kind of like exploration theme and generic like town theme. Like, even these towns, like, they don't always have their own themes. It's just like the same tracks keep playing over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Oh. And one thing that of note, Paul, is that I do agree with you. Like, I also enjoy, like, sort of a throwback to that more video game-y sounding soundtrack. But these tracks, at least from what I've heard and what I've seen online and stuff, are also not the highest quality MIDI samples they could have gotten. So some of them sound rough at times. I will say, it does make me really happy that in the age of like 4K television and, high fidelity sort of video game consoles and systems where everybody's trying to push like the most realistic sweat glands on like every NBA player in 2K27 or whatever, that a game like Dragon Quest can come out with, this sort of very classic sort of throwback-ish art style and be very well received for it. That makes me happy. I like that.
Yeah. Especially playing Yakuza Kiwami lately, I've been seeing a lot of pores on people's skin.
People love it.
And Yeah, I guess. I guess people love the pores. You're right, Arnie.
Yeah, but the Yakuza games
marketing
are especially
campaign.
the Yakuza games are especially pory. I mean, I imagine that Japanese people have more pores or like more pronounced pores or something like that, because it's something that always sticks out of me when I see the Yakuza games. Like, why am I noticing so many pores here?
Nothing.
Okay,
nothing
good. I'm glad I'm not
grants-
the only one.
Nothing speaks more to intensity than sweat, and the only way to get more sweat is to have more pores.
But do they ever sweat though? Because I've never seen them sweat. Kiryu has never broken a sweat that I know of. I haven't seen him.
Okay, so first of all, I'm not sure if this is just an urban legend, but apparently, like, Japanese people, especially like when they're Japan, they don't sweat that much. But then a lot of times when they, like, for example, they come over to Europe, then I don't know what it is, and maybe people have been bullshitting me and, telling me urban legends, but they start, sweating, more here than in Japan.
I don't know, man. There are a lot of racist theories I could propose that I won't. Anyhow, anything else, Masa? Quick.
Yeah, there's this little game called Red Dead Redemption 2.
Haven't heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard of it either.
Yeah, I mean, only 17 million people have bought the game so far, so, yeah, I mean, it's a
Those are
small
rookie
indie
numbers.
title.
What's GTA 5 at?
Actually, yeah, it's at 100 million, so, yeah, it's not even, like, that well known. But, yeah, anyways, okay, so, yeah, Red Dead 2, it's quite an amazing audio-visual experience. It really feels like playing a Western movie, and everything, I would say when it comes to the, like, let's say audio and graphics, everything is, I feel like on a whole nother level. Like the voice acting is some of the best that I've ever heard in any game. Like the animations are amazing. The soundtrack, I'm a big fan of Western movies, and especially like these spaghetti westerns, and of course I love Ennio Morricone's music, and there's a lot of songs that actually remind me of like his songs. Okay, so there's not enough music in a way that there's like sometimes when you're just traversing through the world, it's completely quiet, much like something like Breath of the Wild. But yeah, graphically, I'm actually playing the game on Xbox One S. I finally got me an Xbox One.
Cool.
How does it look? I've heard that the Xbox One version is sort of the version to get as far as graphics go.
Well, yes and no. Because if you have an Xbox One X, then that's the version to play. I have the S model, which is, I would say, I guess it's the worst looking version, but still, even on Xbox One S, it looks like just ridiculously amazing. Like it's,
Okay.
I don't know, might be the best looking game that I've ever played. It's,
Oh wow.
This is what I've heard.
yeah,
I've heard it's like the best looking game ever.
yeah, I mean, especially like if you turn on the cinematic mode, and then you just kinda let like for example, when you're traversing or riding a horse, put on the cinematic mode, like there are times when it feels like you are actually watching a movie instead of playing a video game. And everything looks so realistic.
So the only question I've got for you is, what do you think of the pace? Because that seems to be the most controversial thing with the game, is how slow and deliberate everything is. And some people seem to like it because it puts them into the atmosphere, and other people are like, oh my god, I just want a quick travel already.
Okay, so here's the thing. I love RPGs, and really often they are very slow paced. Like Trace of Cold Steel is one of my all-time favorite games, and it's very slow paced, but yeah, it's an issue in Red Dead 2. I don't really like it how everything is so slow. Like I said that the game is an amazing audiovisual experience, and when it comes to presentation, music, acting, graphics, everything is just out of this world. But the actual gameplay, so far it hasn't been that much fun. And part of the reason why is because everything is so slow. Even, like, sometimes you travel and it takes 5 minutes, but it's just, you're just watching the horse riding animation and nothing really happens. Okay, so sometimes, so there might be people wanting to help you or whatever, these little side quests, but yeah, and that's not the only thing that's slow. Also, when it comes to, like, let's say looting a person, that animation takes forever. You are, robbing a house. It takes forever to, you actually like have to open all the cabins all at once, and then you pick up each item, one by one.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there's an alert, and people will be like the sheriff will be after you, and everything. Yeah, I mean it's a very slow paced game, and like I don't mind slow games if it's story related, but if it's gameplay related, then yeah, it does bother me. And so when it comes to actual like gameplay mechanics, shooting feels great. There's this auto aim system basically, and you can use bullet time. It makes it a lot easier. But melee combat is, oh my god. Like the first time I saw it, it really looks like two drunk guys brawling. It's ugly. The animations are ugly. It's not fun. You basically just like smash like one button and then you block, and it's like I don't really like the good old fisticuffs in that game. But yeah, I have to say I haven't played the game. I played for a few hours. So yeah, I'm gonna continue today. So far there's lots of good things and some things that I don't like. Is it worth the hype? Maybe not. I'm not sure. But yeah, we'll probably talk about the game later anyway. So
yeah.
We'll probably revisit it at some point.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that the one thing about Red Dead that I really love is that I feel like it's the only time people give a shit about cowboys anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like nobody ever talks about cowboys. There's no really any cowboys or Western related games, so Red Dead sort of scratches that.
And not even
once
movies.
in a while. Yeah,
and that
exactly.
it's selling so well, it's so amazing. Like, who the hell still like cares about cowboys to sell this well? It actually sold, I read the other day, it sold as many copies as Red Dead 1 has sold in 8 years. Which is insane. It's absolutely insane. So, and Red Dead Online is actually coming out in the next month. So, do you know that's not gonna slow down anytime soon, considering how long GTA Online has been going? So yeah, it's amazing.
Well, I guess the appetite's out there, space exploration, cowboys. Everybody wants to be something other than an office worker.
We all have our fantasies that doesn't involve, sitting in front of a computer all day. So,
Space cowboys? Question mark.
Space cowboys. There you go.
All right, guys. We're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, more games.
All right.
All right, and we're back. So, Arnie, what have you been playing?
All right, so it's hard to figure out which one to go with first, but I think I'm going to go with my gut. And so I recently played and finished Binary Domain on the PS3.
Cool.
Yes, very much enjoyed it. I know Ozzy had recommended it to me before, and I've been on the lookout for it for a while, and it's very cheap. So it was just one of those, I think much like Spec Ops The Line, it was like, on the face of it, just a generic first-person shooter, but once you actually get to play it, like the mechanics are really solid, the story is better than your average fare for FPSs, just in general, and it's pretty engaging. I mean, I really enjoyed it. It was one of those where I started playing it, and without knowing it, I just couldn't put it down. Like, I would pick it up every chance I got and play a little bit more and a little bit more just to get a little bit further. Super fun. I think the biggest thing to highlight is probably that it's got pseudo RPG elements in it, which is always a plus for me. You're able to customize like weapon loadouts, obviously, but you and your team, because you get at the start of every mission, you get to pick 2 people to come with you. and you get to you get these orbs that you can equip to them in like a grid to sort of improve some of their stats, like defense, health, make them reload quicker, give them more damage output, stuff like that. And you also buy upgrades, like generic upgrades for their weapons as you go through the game. So it's nice. It's very customizable. I think you get like maybe 5 or 6 total party members through the course of the game. So it's one of those where you could definitely play it again and have a completely different experience than the first time you played it.
That's pretty cool, man. Like I know Ozzy have been recommending it, and as a general rule, if Ozzy recommends something, I notice it. So it's nice to get like another corroborating opinion. But like this kind of game, especially in that era, like I feel like a lot of these games, like Spec Ops: The Line, Binary Domain, a lot of these games were hurt by the fact that we had such a proliferation of FPS games, especially like on a yearly franchise model.
Yeah.
So a lot of these binary domains, like they get overlooked, they get lost in the shuffle.
Well, there were so many cover-based shooters, third-person shooters around the time. I mean, I just think back to it and I'm just like, oh my god, that was such a horrible time for gaming. Which is
wasn't great.
Yeah, it was very samey and it was very violent, and I don't know, I just kind of see it as a little bit of a nadir in gaming, to be perfectly honest, but that's just me. But that's why I like Binary Domain so much, because it had a lot of charm, and because you were, shooting robots, basically, it just felt a little bit different, and the characters have a lot of, like, really good banter between them, and it's an all-star cast. Like, the voice actors in the English version, like, Troy Baker is there, and he plays, like, this British dude, and, just a lot of people, like Laura Bailey, and everyone that you know and love. Yeah, yep. Yeah,
I'm gonna start playing that game right now. So, see you later, guys.
Yeah. So, waifu, yeah. So it's a really just charming game, and I forgot about the RPG elements, but I remember now that was one of the main reasons why I liked it so much. Yeah. And there's also this mechanic where, you can shoot the robots, depending upon where you shoot them, they react differently. And so you may, take down their legs, and it's complete like deformation. Like the robots are all like body specific, but if you shoot down their legs, they just like keep walking and stuff like that. Or if you shoot down their head, they keep walking, but they can't do anything because they don't have their head.
Well,
and so
that was like kind of terrifying the first time I played it, because when you like Ozzy's saying, you can take out like each individual limb is sort of its own separate thing. So like you can take out like a robot's legs, but then they'll just start crawling after you and like trying to shoot you. And
they come at you en masse, dude. They come at you en masse. Like that's
so
what
you realize. The first time that happened, I like nearly shit my pants. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
That's some like Terminator 1 kind of thing.
When it does like cool things, like if you shoot them in the head, like if you blow their heads off, they sort of malfunction and they start shooting other robots.
Yeah. So it's just a cool, like all the cool little mechanics that they implemented. You could definitely tell that it's a game made by the Yakuza studio, because
and that's something that I was waiting for someone to mention. I actually also played the game for a little bit recently, only for an hour so far. But now that I know that Laura Bay's in, I'm gonna go and finish the game like this evening. But yeah, like I mean. Okay, so it's well established that, I kind of like the Yakuza series, and I started playing the game, and I was expecting kind of like a, third-person shooter version of Yakuza, but yeah, that game is not very Yakuza-like, to be honest. And I mean, I don't mean it in a bad way, but I'm actually like really surprised that, the studio was, like they made a game that's like completely different. Well, not completely, but different. But yeah, it's very different compared to for example, the PS3 Yakuza games.
Yeah, and going back to what Paul and Ozzy were talking about, this sort of malaise of third-person cover shooters that was so prevalent at the time. I wonder sometimes. I think with Spec Ops, this was definitely the case, where I think they were trying to use that as sort of a cover to tell this story. You know what I mean? Like somebody who would see that game and be like, oh, I love third person shooters. Like, let me get this game. And then sort of get you mind fucked once you like actually realize what was going on.
Well, but Spec Ops, with something like Spec Ops though, it was like, the game was very generic in its gameplay, and it was actually a sludge to play. I hated playing through that game. I hated it, but it was part of it. Like they were trying to send a message. It was very artistic in that way. Like they were just trying to send a message like, you're gonna hate this. You're gonna hate playing through this. And to me, the activity of playing it was not enjoyable at all. Yeah. But that was the point of it. So I wouldn't go back to Spec Ops, but I would certainly go back to Binary Domain.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say is I don't know if Binary Domain was trying to necessarily do something like that. Or if they just wanted to make a shooter, and it just so happened that this was probably the worst time in video game history to make a third-person shooter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it flopped. It flopped. I don't think it did well at all,
I mean, you can find it at GameStop right now for like $3.
Yeah.
Like that. Like it's not well regarded. Like I think the people that play it love it, but it's not generally well thought of because most people didn't play it.
Yeah.
I wonder if it'll eventually turn into like Nier for the PS3, right? Where like nobody talks about it for a long time. It's super cheap. And then eventually, well, I guess it helped that Nier Automata came out and was a hit. But like, I had never heard about Nier until fairly recently. And then the price just started going up and up and up.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that big. Yeah, I don't think it's ever going to hit like that Nier level. Because the thing with Nier is that there was always that hook, which is that the game plays this really big twist on you, and you kind of have to see the twist for yourself. Whereas I don't think Binary Domain really has that. I mean, I'm not going to hail it as a masterpiece or something that is absolutely groundbreaking, but it's a very fun game, and unlike Nier, it's not, meant to be more than that, just a really good fun time. So I don't think it's ever going to hit that level, of popularity, but I think it already is a cult classic. Like, people regard it very well, I think.
But I think it would have to take like a sequel because it's by the Yakuza studio, but it's very different compared to Yakuza games. And I can see, like, let's say when it comes to Yakuza, like let's say you become a huge fan of the series, but I can see you kind of like skipping Binary Domain and then even like playing the Japan exclusive like Samurai games, like instead of Binary Domain, because it's like, I don't think the Yakuza Association is gonna make it like more popular.
No, I don't think so.
It's just too different.
For me, actually, when I first saw the game, the fact that it was made by the Yakuza studio was actually one of the reasons why I didn't pick it up, funnily enough, because I played Yakuza Dead Souls and I hated the shooting mechanics in that game. And I said, I don't think they can do shooting well, so why would I pick this game up? But then I realized that it's very different. Like, they have their own kind of like engine for that. So I think I would recommend it, Paul, if you can play it.
I would definitely recommend it. One thing that I also forgot to mention that I guess I should tell people is that it also has a built-in gimmick that is optional. But if you have a PS3 or Xbox 360 microphone, it has voice recognition, so you can yell commands to your teammates while you're fighing.
I forgot about that.
Supposed to do them. I skipped it completely. Basically, if you don't plug in a microphone or you choose not to do it, you can access it through button commands. But that was its like, this is the gimmick for this game. So the second game I had, which I had to look up the title to make sure I wasn't saying it wrong, but it is, and I quote, Super Robot Taisen, OG Saga, Endless Frontier, and Knuckles. I was
the
like,
longest
no,
game
I definitely,
title of all time.
I was like, I definitely know the title to this game, and then I immediately looked it up because I was like, I don't know the title to this game.
What is the thing about the Japanese and these weird fucking names? I'm sorry, I'm even cursing because it's like, what the hell, guys?
I think, in playing it, and I don't actually know this because I don't know enough about the series that are involved, but I think this is sort of a crossover game because there's characters from is it Xenosaga? Yeah, Xenosaga in there. And there's characters from like, if have you guys played Project Cross Zone?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Those games, yeah.
So Haken and Kaguya, who are like these two random characters, are like the main characters in this game, and there's also a couple other Namco characters that are in here. It's very strange. It was not the game I was expecting it to be. it's a JRPG, turn based. It has very unique mechanic. It sort of has the cross zone battle mechanic where you basically press a button and they do a combo and you have to sort of chain it together with other combos, and you can call in people to come help you and continue to hit characters and stuff. Which
which console is the game for?
This is DS. It was original DS.
Okay.
Yeah. So it plays fine. It's pretty fun. I mean, the fun mostly comes in managing the amount of attacks you can do. There's a gauge that you sort of have to fill up, either with items or just by not performing actions during your turn. And each one of your combo moves takes a percentage of that bar, depending on how strong the attack is and what it does. And so you sort of get to set which order you do attacks in and which attacks you're doing when. So it's very like management sort of focused. But I found that you don't have to be sort of trying to min-max like everything to be okay at the game. I've barely spent any time in like the menus and stuff, and I'm doing just fine. The real thing about this game is it's one of those RPGs where I feel like it's good and I'm enjoying it, and then it overstays its welcome. Like I get to a point where I'm like, this is definitely the end of this game. And then the game doesn't
end. And it just keeps going.
And then I get to another part and I'm like, this is definitely the end of this game. And then it keeps going. And I'm like, okay, well now I'm like, I thought this game was going to be over like 4 hours ago. And it's also very fan servicey, like very heavy fan service in this game, which I was also not expecting. But even like, and I don't know if it's a translation thing, but like, I would say like 80% of the dialogue in this game is either like some sort of innuendo or some sort of like off-color joke of some kind, some of which land, some of which definitely don't. And then the other 20% is plot.
That actually sounds a lot like Project Cross Zone. Like everything you just said.
Yeah.
I mean, it basically is. Like, I think this was, like, Project Cross Zone, I think, is built on the bones of this game. Like, the battle mechanic is the same. The art style is essentially the same. The only difference is that Project Cross Zone is a strategy RPG, whereas this is just a regular RPG. But even like Project Cross Zone, like, I don't want to say this game is like a boss rush, but that's basically what you do. Like, most things involve, like, we're going to this area, you go to a dungeon, all of which are fairly short. Like, I don't think there's a dungeon in this game that maybe has more than, like, 7 or 8 different rooms. But the point is, you go, you fight some random mobs along the way, and then you run into a boss character, or, like, a named character that you fight, and then you fight that one, and then you run into another one, and then you run into another one, and then you run into another one, and that's eventually the last boss in that dungeon, and then you leave.
Well, I don't want to play this game weirdly.
It really is. It's really like, as I'm talking, I'm like, I'm really like making this game sound really shitty. And it's fun for the same reason that Project X Zone is fun. I think it's like, you can pick it up, play it a bit, you know, sort of fight bosses and stuff, and then put it down. It's not really one of those where you have to, like, put, like, a ton of time into it between each play session. Like, that's what I would do with Project Cross Zone, is, like, because every mission in that game is, like, a commitment of, like, maybe an hour and a half or something.
Yeah, they're real long,
Pick up, you'd play a mission, you'd be like, I'm done. Or you'd save in the middle of a mission. But it's very much like that, where it's just, like, you take it in chunks. The biggest problem I've had with it so far is that, like I said, I thought this game was going to end like 4 hours ago, and it's still going. Like, the characters and the plot behind it aren't strong enough to hold, like, my attention for that long. Like, I think I'm at 36 hours in right now. And it looks like I probably have another 5 to 10 hours of it left.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's Super Robot Taisen OG Saga: Endless Frontier.
Yep.
I'm
wondering if we should do like a contest of like the most ridiculous Japanese name ever, and which one would take it, because Kingdom Hearts would probably be up there. But damn it, I mean, Super Robot Taisen OG Saga, I don't know.
Endless Frontier.
Endless Frontier. Well, it's funny, Arnie, that you've been playing Super Robot Taisen Original Saga Endless Frontier on the DS, because the game that I've been playing is Super Robot Taisen Original Generation on the Game Boy Advance.
Yes, which is one that I do want to get, actually.
You know what? Like, I might as well just dive into it, really.
Yeah.
Like, Original Generation, the thing about Endless Frontier is that it's not like a Super Robot Wars game. It's more like Project X Zone, like you said, right? And it has those original characters and so on and so forth. But like the Super Robot Wars, and it's Super Robot Wars, guys. Look, this whole calling it Taisen for American audiences, I don't know what is going on there. It's Super Robot Wars. Like that's what it's always been to me. I've been playing this game since I was a kid. So the fact that they kept the word Taisen instead of translating it to when they brought it over to the States, like, I don't know what that decision's all about. Cause nobody knows what a Taisen is, right? Like,
No.
Anyway. Yeah, I don't even know where to start with Original Generation. Like, if you guys want to play like an actual Super Robot Wars game, the kind that's been around forever, and you want to play it in English, your options are kind of limited. There's a couple on the PS4 that have English translation, but were released in Asia only.
Okay.
So they're kind of pricey. Like, you can't just go to a GameStop and find it used, unfortunately. And you have the Game Boy Advance games. So it's like it's almost like a Fire Emblem kind of game where you have a map and you move your units around the map and then they fight each other and you see an animation from when they fight. But man, it's just this game. I don't know what it is about Super Robot Wars. Like, I started playing, let me back up a little bit. So like, I have a buddy in Toronto who I've known for a long time, and we've been fans of Super Robot Wars forever. And we'll talk about Super Robot Wars, and I'll lament. I'll be like, man, why isn't there like an English one? And I know why. It's because of licensing of all the animes and so on, right? But I'm like, this game would be so much better with, translation, right? Where I could understand everything that was going on instead of having to consult an FAQ, right? And my buddy's like, look, dude, you're missing the point. The story doesn't matter. It's Robot Wars.
Yeah.
It's about upgrading your mechs and listening to them talk and say their iconic lines from the shows and listening to the music. And I'm like, yeah, I guess, And so I haven't played a lot of these Japanese ones, right? So I got the Original Generation for the Game Boy Advance, and lo and behold, it's in English and there's a storyline. And the storyline is a mess.
Yeah.
It's a mess. It's garbage. I don't understand any of what's going on. Like, it's all acronyms. Like, people in this game just toss out acronyms like candy, and I have no idea what any of these things mean, right? And Arnie, it was like you were saying with the innuendo in Endless Frontier. In Original Generation for the Game Boy Advance, it's like, it's the opposite. It's like 2080, right? It's 80% acronyms and nonsense story. And then there's one female character who does a lot of innuendo, right?
Yeah.
And it's awesome because every male character reacts to her innuendo and flirting with one of two reactions. One is being deeply offended. Like, oh my God, how can you behave like that? You're a woman, blah, blah, blah. And then the other reaction is, relax, woman. We don't have time for your silly shenanigans right now. We have a war to fight. And it makes me wonder, like, is this what Japanese men are like? Like, is this why their birth rate is so low? I don't understand what's going on, right?
See,
but
you're basically describing the game that I was just playing, but instead of acronyms, it's like each world in the Endless Frontier is basically a recreation of another culture. And so it's like, this person will say this about this thing, and this person will be talking about the same thing, but calling it something completely different.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I don't understand how they can do so poorly with translating these games. Like, man, Original Generation. Anyway, the point is that ultimately my buddy was right. the story doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's a RoboWars game. If you haven't played a RoboWars game and you like Fire Emblem or Advance Wars or whatever, like, you have to play a RoboWars game. They're so much fun. And if you grew up watching, you know, depending on your age, you either grew up watching Getter Robo, you grew up watching
Mazinger
Robotech.
Z.
Sorry? Mazinger Z? Or going forward, you grew up watching Gundam Wing.
Yeah.
Or whatever the case may be, like, there are robots in this series for you. Not so much in the Game Boy Advance games. The Game Boy Advance games are all original robots by Banpresto. But ultimately, like, it doesn't matter. The game is super fun. Like, you go through the scenario, you set up attacks, you know, you cast your magic, and you get money, and then you upgrade your mechs, and you rinse and repeat, and it's super, super fun. Because who doesn't want to control giant mechs and have them fight each other? You know what I mean?
Well, I'm sold now, Paul. You've redeemed it now that, you know, Arnie made me think that this was the absolute worst.
Well,
bear in mind, Endless Frontier is a much different game.
Yeah,
like,
I was gonna say, there are no robots in Endless Frontier. There is no, like...
Oh, really?
There is no licensed mechs. It's all Bandai Namco characters.
So wait,
okay.
But the name is still like Super Robot Taisen?
Yes.
I
don't know enough about the series to know where the crossover is, but I think Endless Frontier is a separate entity to...
Endless Frontier is absolutely a separate entity and a very, very different kind of game.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, like, if you had heard somebody talking about RoboWars, and then you went and played Endless Frontier first, you'd be doing yourself a large disservice. Like, at least as far as understanding what the series is all about. Play Original Generation on the Game Boy Advance if you can, or play the PS4 games. I've had the PS4 games actually for, 9 months or something. They've been sitting on my shelf waiting to get played because, backlog, right?
Yeah.
And plus I wanted to play the GBA ones first since they were kind of the predecessor. Mm-hmm. And so I popped in RoboWars X, which is one of the two English translated ones for the PS4. There's X and there's V. And so I popped in X and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And I put it away. I can't wait to play it at some point because it just looks so good on the PS4. But anyway, yeah, so that's Original Generation on the GBA. Again, if you like Fire Emblem and you like giant robots, you got to get into this.
I'm sold. So
yeah.
Have you been playing anything else, Paul?
I've been playing... Yeah, dude, absolutely. Soul Calibur 6.
Woo! I've
been playing. Yeah, man. Dude, so ever since I was at your place, Ozzy, and we were playing Soul Calibur 2 for like 10 hours.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I forgot how good this fucking game is, right?
Oh, it's so great,
and
man.
So, what's that?
I always used to think that Tekken was the better game, and then it was that night that we were playing for hours, and I was just like, I can finally see the brilliance of Soul Calibur. Like, I can finally see why this game is hailed as the best fighting game of all time.
Yeah.
It's amazing, honestly. I'm so excited to hear you talk about Soul Calibur 6.
I'm so excited to talk about Soul Calibur 6. Because, it's so good. Like, it's such a great return to form for the series.
Quick question, though.
Yeah.
Geralt, good choice, good addition?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely. He fits right in.
Quick question. Is Maxi still the best character?
So Soul Calibur 6, what's so great about it? No, Maxi's awful. Stop it right now. No, it's the only, it takes everything that was good about Soul Calibur 2. It kind of, simplifies everything so that it's closer to Soul Calibur 2, and it adds just a few things that are not overwhelming, right? And the magic of Soul Calibur is that it's so accessible and yet deep. Mm-hmm. It is the most accessible yet deep fighting game I've ever played. Anybody can pick it up, play, and start feeling like a champ. Whereas if you're playing, let's just say Virtua Fighter 5, right? Because that's a fairly, albeit not current, but a fairly, close analog to it. Virtua Fighter is very complex. It's almost like perfect fighting game. except that when you're playing it for the first time, you just feel like a giant sack of shit. Like everything moves so slow, and you know, when you button mash, the kind of stuff you expect to happen when you button mash doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But Soul Calibur 6 offers like a much gentler learning curve where you can pick it up, play it, be successful, and then kind of slowly start figuring out what you're doing right and start trying to replicate that instead of like mashing the buttons all the time, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's super deep too. Like there's so much to learn, so much to master. When two people who are really good at it play against each other, it looks really, really cool. You know, I can't say enough about it.
Yeah,
and it brings back... Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I think that's what I realized, because I always played Soul Calibur single player, and I think you really are doing yourself a disservice by doing so. And when I played so much with you, you know, it made me realize, oh, I just can't button mash my way around it. And it was such a fascinating experience to kind of see you adapting to my playstyle, and then I had to adapt to your refined playstyle. And it was just a constant evolution where I was forced to get better simply because you were getting better. And so it's a very interesting dynamic that I don't know, I'm just completely fascinated by it. Because you realize that there's an entire added layers upon layers to the game that you didn't realize before.
Yeah, and at no point during that process were you not having fun.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, even when I was getting my butt kicked, you know, and even when you were, you know, really pissed off that I was still picking Raphael. Is Raphael in this one?
Yes, he is, unfortunately.
Yes. I can still be your nagging, you know, nemesis.
Yeah, the foil.
I want to say that I agree with everything you've just said, and it really speaks to me as like not a fighting game player, where in like for context, in Paul's Virtua Fighter example, I am the giant sack of shit. That's exactly how I felt when we played Virtua Fighter. And so like it really is like Soul Calibur is one of those where even if you're not winning, you're still having fun, and even if you don't know what you're doing, you still feel like you're always in it. You know, like it never feels like, I think if we played Virtua Fighter 15 times, I would win 0. If we play Soul Calibur 15 times, I might win 2. And those 2 that you do win make you feel like really awesome.
Yeah. Well, I had a buddy over the other night, and it was almost time to call it a night, right? We had been playing, what did we play that night? Geez, we played Enter the Gungeon, and then we played Earth Defense Force 4.1. But that's a whole other ball of wax. And so the night was coming to a close.
EDF.
Oh, dude, I can't get enough of it. And I was like, hey, I got Soul Calibur 6. Do you want to see it? Right? Because we'd been talking about it earlier in the night. And he's like, yeah, pop it in, right? And so I popped it in, and I was like, 1 match? And he's like, yeah, sure. And we played about 8 matches. And like, he was like, at first, he wasn't even excited. He's like, you're just going to kick my ass and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, you know, we'll see. And like I said, 8 matches later, and then it was time to call it a night. It's so fun. It's so easy to pick up. It looks so good. The single player mode is extremely robust. There's like several different story modes and an RPG kind of mode. So like there's never a lack of things to do there. The character creation and customization options are through the roof. You can make just about anything.
Well, it's interesting because that was one of my favorite things about Mortal Kombat Armageddon, and I know that game is not, you know, a bunch of people's favorite Mortal Kombat, but it's mine. Because the character creation mode was so fun. Because you could make like a Gatchaman, you could make Ghost Rider, you could make Dante, and like I was the bane of everyone's existence when I created Dante, because I made the sword too big, and so they could not block the attack any which way that they would. So I was just that obnoxious friend that it was just like, well, you're not gonna beat my Dante. So to me, like kind of making those breakable characters that just like break the whole game, it's just part of the fun. But it's also good to hear that it has a good single player mode, because I play a lot of fighting games for their single player, weirdly enough. So I'm that weird guy. Which is why I tend to enjoy the Mortal Kombat games, like the NetherRealm games, because they usually have a robust single player mode. So
I have to say, like Mortal Kombat X, had the best story mode I had ever seen.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
it
I
was
mean,
really good.
on a curve, like basically for fighting games, like the
Sure, yeah, of course.
like
of
the
course.
story's ridiculous, but it's fun. It's like fun kind of ridiculous, and it kind of leans into that cheesiness of Mortal Kombat quite a lot. Where it reminded me of the first Mortal Kombat movie, which is still the best video game adaptation of all time. Thank you very much.
I mean,
hey man, I'm not arguing.
I agree.
But yeah, I actually play it for the single player mode, so I'm glad that that's the case. I might wait for it to like drop down a few bucks, just because there are so many games out there that need to be picked up. But
I know, like, there's a part of me that's like, Ozzy, you got to get it so we can play online. But I'm like, you don't necessarily need to spend however much money it costs in American dollars. It's $80 Canadian, right?
Oh wow.
So it's not like, it's not cheap, right? It's a new game, and it's probably the kind of game that you want to shell the money out for if you know you're going to enjoy it and want to enjoy it immediately.
Yeah, to me, it's either that or Red Dead 2. And, to be honest, it's kind of weird to say this, but I'm not quite sure which one of those I would pick up. I am so excited for Soul Calibur 6, and I am weirdly just interested about Red Dead 2, but I'm not as hyped as people, seem to be. I don't know. I feel like that game is like, it reminds me of Grand Theft Auto 4, where everyone was hyping it so much because it was so realistic and because it had all these features. And then people like look back on it and it's like, oh wait, that game wasn't actually fun to play.
I mean, I would have to agree. Like the other day, like I got my Xbox on Monday, and then I played Red Dead for a couple of days, and then I was like, yeah, maybe I should go back to Dragon Quest XI. I played that game for a couple of days, and then yesterday I played Red Dead for an hour and took a break and started playing Yakuza 5.
Yeah, it's weird. But Masa, you can see it in all the reviews, or whenever people talk about it, they just talk about the detail, the graphics, the voice acting, blah, blah, blah. But is it fun?
No, I mean, that's the point. That's the point. And I feel like, okay, so all of us, like, of course, we all play like Japanese developed games way more than Western titles. And there's definitely, when it comes to the game, like video game development philosophy, it's very different if you compare Japan and the West. Because in Japan, it's often like gameplay first and then you figure out the rest. But over here in the West, it's like, they come up with the grand story. They, spend years and years on, coming up with this like really realistic graphics, and they hire the best voice actors in the game and stuff. But then they start thinking about the gameplay. And I think Rockstar is definitely like one of those companies that I kind of feel like I would enjoy Red Dead more as a movie than as a video game.
Yeah, but
this is kind of how I feel about The Last of Us, because I've been playing The Last of Us on and off now for a couple months, and I'm halfway through it, and everything about it I find enjoyable, except for the gameplay, which I find a little bit frustrating at times.
You don't love the clickers?
Oh man, like, but I'm going to finish it because it's compelling. Like, the story's really great, and it's very pretty to look at, and so on and so forth. But like, the game itself, I'm like, oh man, like the third person aiming, I'm like, really? It's just not doing it for me in that way.
Let me tell you the moment that I lost my interest in Red Dead 2. I mean, I don't want to say lost my interest because I still want to get it, but the moment that I found out that you had to eat and keep up your eating gauge, basically. Because we had that in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and we kind of had the cousin Roman in Grand Theft Auto 4 calling you up to play bowling, and those like nods at realism never work because they just end up being frustrating. Like, I don't want to have to remember whether I ate a freaking rabbit last night, and I don't want to stop in the middle of a shootout to cook myself a possum or something. It's just it's like it breaks the immersion weirdly enough for me to have to do that. And I thought that was something that came back that I never wanted to see back again. So
Yeah.
My favorite part of this conversation is the smash cut to 2 months from now when Ozzy's like, Red Dead 2 is amazing.
But yeah, I have to say, okay, so in Yakuza games, the recent ones, yeah, you can also eat, and then you have the hunger gates, but it's more about you just gain XP by eating. It's not gonna affect you. Like, it doesn't matter if you have a full stomach or empty stomach. It's not gonna, affect your stamina or anything like that. So.
Oh, good. That's good.
At least in San Andreas, I enjoyed that I could make my character like morbidly obese.
That was really
Oh
fun.
man, that was like my favorite discovery ever from our podcast, was finding out that you can make an obese character in GTA San Andreas.
Yeah,
Like,
it's the
it makes
best.
me want to play that game just so I can make a fat guy and just be fat. Anyway, lastly, real quick, since we're speaking about Yakuza, the other game I've been playing, Fist of the North Star: Lost Paradise for PS4.
Nice.
Oh man,
I'm curious to hear about this one.
it's, you know what? I'll make it quick, dude.
No, but he was already dead. That's it.
I love the speed with which you had to throw that in there. But I'll make it quick. Like, it's a Yakuza game, but it's Fist of the North Star.
Yeah.
It's got like kind of a cel-shaded graphic look. It looks great.
Oh wow.
It plays really well, and it's ridiculous. Like, I love the story, because the story is like, I love, the thing I love about Yakuza and Fist of the North Star is like, I'm really learning that there are so many problems in life that can be solved with violence.
Oh lord.
And it's just great. Like, every single thing Kenshiro comes upon, it's solved with violence. And basically Kenshiro has like 2 different modes. Kenshiro being the main protagonist of the game, for those of you who don't know. He has like 2 modes. He has the threatening mode, where a jabroni comes up to him and he's like, I'm gonna beat you up, and Kenshiro's like, no, you're gonna die. And then they fight, and then Kenshiro tells him he's already dead. And he's like, Nani? And then he blows up, right? The other mode that Kenshiro is in is when he tells the guys, look, I don't want to fight. Guess what? They always fight. And Kenshiro always makes their heads blow up. And I could do it over and over and over. It's great.
We
Yeah,
just
it's actually funny
went
how,
from
like, regarding that, there's even a side quest where, there's this, like, patrol in the city, and they are, like, really, peace-loving people, and they believe that violence is not the answer to every question. And it's like, yeah, Kenshiro, like, you can't go on and, make people's heads blow up all the time. Like, yeah, you can talk it out, and then you try doing it, and yeah, I mean, of course, you still end up like killing all the bad guys.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Like, for that reason alone, I'm probably just gonna keep playing it, just because like the comedy value of responding to every single situation with brutal violence is hilarious, and it's even extra amusing to me now that we've had that conversation about like, binary domain is better because you kill robots instead of people. Yet in Yakuza, I've beaten up on like literally hundreds of jabronis in the middle of the street. And it's still enjoyable. I don't get it. Anyhow.
By the way, how far into the game are you?
I think I'm on chapter 4 now.
Okay, I'm at chapter 6.
Oh yeah. I had to like kind of put the brakes on it a little bit because I also want to finish Kiwami. In Kiwami, I'm on chapter 11.
Okay.
So I think I'm getting pretty close to the end there.
Yeah, you are.
And then once I finish up with Kiwami, I can go back to Fist of the North Star and kind of give it the attention that it so richly deserves. Anyhow, so that's it for what I've been playing. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have some listener questions.
Listener question.
Alrighty, and we're back. And as usual, big thanks to our listeners for offering up some really good questions to ask us via Instagram mostly. It's how we do most of our communication. So yeah, let's just jump in here. Really good question here from Mr. Game and Brews. The most challenging game you've played and beaten, Ozzy.
I don't have an answer for that because I haven't beaten Bloodborne, weirdly enough. I don't remember, dude. I'm not a skilled game player, and I'm not afraid to admit that. I just enjoy it, but I'm not a skilled game player. I really wish I could say that I've beaten Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3, but I have not. So I'm just gonna pass it to you guys.
Masa?
I would have to say that I'm much like Ozzy and that I'm a very average player when it comes to video games. But there's one game from my past which I guess most people would consider very challenging, and that's Battletoads and Double Dragon on the Super Nintendo.
Thank God you said that, because if you said, I don't know, I would have immediately been like, you beat Battletoads and Double Dragon. You've told me this before.
You've also
that
beat
game is hard
multiple
as
Contra
shit.
games.
Oh, yeah, the first Contra game. Yeah, I mean, that's another one.
How about you, Arnie?
Yeah, I'm a lot like Ozzy, where whenever I try to think of a game, I'm like, that game wasn't that hard, So if I had to pick one, it probably would be like the Devil Survivor games on DS. I was pretty proud of beating those, because usually with especially with strategy RPGs, I sort of taper out towards the end. Like it happened with Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon. It's happened with Tactics Ogre. So actually finishing it was I like that.
And Devil Survivor, the thing is, Devil Survivor makes it easy too. Like it's a very compelling game.
Yeah.
And the storyline is a lot of fun. Anyway, we won't get too far into Devil Survivor.
Oh yeah, I would have to, now that we are talking about the 3DS strategy games, I would have to add Fire Emblem Conquest, because that game is a motherfucker.
What about you, Paul?
And as far as, I can go back to when I was a kid and list a whole bunch of NES games or Sega Master System games. Like Sega Master System, Alex Kidd in Miracle World is hard as hell, man.
Yeah.
And it's 2 hours, no saving.
All the Alex Kidd are super hard, weirdly enough. I played, which one's the one on the Genesis, and I was like, man, this is stuff, and I don't think I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, exactly. But that's when I was a kid and I had infinite time. If I was to say recently, ironically, it would still be an 8-bit NES game. I was super friggin' proud when I finally beat the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the NES.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. Oh, wow. I was surprised that I beat it too.
I want you to insert a slow clap sound. Because that is an actual hard game compared to what I've beaten.
Yeah, and I never made past the dam level.
Oh, dude, that dam level? Jesus Christ. What can I say, right? It's like everything else. Repetition, practice, you get better at it. But Ninja Turtles has the additional, it has that additional bullshit factor. So much of it is so cheap. Especially when you're in the Technodrome at the end, and there's these flying enemies that shoot you with these guns, and they're God damn, man, they're such a pain in the ass. And God forbid you ever use Donatello against them, because if you lose Donatello, then you might as well just put the game away, right?
Well, let me just mention, I remembered one now, and just to not leave everyone hanging, Gunstar Heroes. I actually beat that, and I don't know if you would call that a hard game, but I think most shoot 'em ups are pretty hard by its very own nature. So yeah, I beat Gunstar Heroes, and I was pretty proud of that, even though it took me 3 weeks.
Cool. No, it's not easy. I wouldn't put it on Dark Souls or TMNT level.
Yeah.
But it is. You know what else helps too is playing 2 players. It becomes a lot easier with 2 players. Gunstar Hero does.
Yeah. Any other questions, Paul?
Yeah, man. Grab Life by the Controller. He asks us, in your opinion, why did the original Game Boy rule the handheld market? I don't know, man. Arnie, what do you think?
Battery life. Yeah, absolute battery life. for sure.
Battery life, yeah.
I mean, it was also cheaper, which helped. But I mean, coming from somebody who owned a Sega Nomad, having to put like 8 AA batteries into something for it to last 3 hours or less, it was not fun. So I think the Game Boy, especially in that day and age, I think the Game Boy is like the one true portable handheld system. Because something like the Game Gear, I feel like most people would just play plugged into the wall. Because there was no, you can't take that on a long car ride. It'll die halfway through. Whereas the Game Boy, I think, had the advantage of having a much longer battery life and using less batteries overall. So I think that was, if I had to pick one thing, that's probably it. And I mean, the games were better, ?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, I mean, they did have, I hate to say it, but they did have Pokemon.
Yes.
Well, but the original Game Boy, I mean, Pokemon released like 1996, which was on the original Game Boy, but really late into the original Game Boy's life. And Pokemon gave it like a second shot at life. And so that's why they released the Game Boy Color, because they weren't quite ready to release the Game Boy Advance yet. But I think that, Pokemon was huge, but even before that, the Game Boy had already been established. And I think, yes, Tetris and Mario. Those two games just made it, the default portable game system to go to. And the fact that they were built using cheap components, which if you haven't looked at an original Game Boy screen lately, you're going to be shocked at how bad the screen is. It's freaking terrible. But it made it cheaper, and it made it so that it could last longer with the battery life. And that ultimately was the coup de grace for, dominating the portable market. So, Nintendo was very savvy. And I think that the Nintendo Game Boy philosophy still applies to this day, where they don't necessarily use the most high-end, technology, but it just works, and that's, the same with the Switch. It's not a high-end Vita, basically, or, like Vita is less now, but, but it's not a high-end system, but it just works. It has good battery life, decent, and it just does what it's supposed to do. And I think that is a tried and true method of success. Same with the Wii. The graphics weren't great, but, the gimmick was there and they achieved it. And that's all they needed. So, don't think to be at the cutting edge. Be at the cutting edge in terms of your gameplay. And that's what they've achieved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to say that Tetris is probably like the biggest reason, because it was basically the Wii Sports of the late 80s, early 90s. That one game, like we have, mentioned Mario and Pokemon, but those are big games, but those were mainly only played by, people who play video games. But Tetris was one of those games that people who don't normally play video games, like they got a Game Boy just to play Tetris and they never bought another game. They just, played Tetris.
Yep. And I remember the first time I played Tetris with somebody else via a link cable. Man, 2 players? That game is awesome.
Yeah, which, by the way, it's one of the things that I regret that Tetris Effect doesn't have. It doesn't have multiplayer, and I think that's a huge miss.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but, playing Tetris with 2 players is so freaking awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's like half the fun, I think. Maybe it's because it can't really sync with the music like it can with 1 player.
Potentially. Yeah, I would put that probably, that's the most logical explanation.
Yeah. But 2-player VR Tetris. It's the future.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that would, I think that might be the way to go, man. People playing Tetris in VR.
Listen, that might be the way people have sex in the future.
Through Tetris.
Yeah.
What movie was it where that happened?
Demolition Man.
There we go.
Exactly.
Oh man.
I still don't know how to use the 3 seashells. You're probably like, what the hell? It's like, whatever.
Not to do a deep dive on Demolition Man, but I saw it fairly recently, and there's a part in there that I forgot about where Simon Phoenix is walking down the street, the main villain, and
played by Wesley Snipes.
Yes.
And Wesley Snipes, and a couple of Chinese people walk by Wesley Snipes, and he makes like super racist remarks and then just keeps going. And it's this like weird, dude, it's so bizarre.
Yeah.
Like he's talking to another character. The Chinese people walk by. He becomes racist and then just keeps talking like nothing happened. And I don't remember this happening the original time that I saw it.
I don't remember that either.
I don't remember it
Yeah,
either,
same here.
actually.
Yeah.
I'll have to link you guys to. I'll link you guys to the video after the show.
Okay.
Of this, you will be floored,
Dude,
I couldn't believe it.
Without getting into too much of digression, Demolition Man was my favorite movie as a kid. So,
Oh, dude.
it's
He was definitely up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
it was one of the best movies of the 90s.
It was
you
the
know?
best Taco Bell ad ever.
Exactly.
So a couple of quick hits here. So Christian Sadler _ Sadler, because of, I guess there's a lot of those guys out there. He asks, do you prefer Persona 3 FES or Persona 3 Portable? My answer to this is to download our recent Persona 4 episode, where we go into this question in detail towards the end of the episode.
Yeah. I have a quick response in that I've never played Persona 3 Portable, but based solely on the fact that it lets you control all your party members, I would recommend Persona 3 Portable.
Yeah, that's definitely a large factor.
Yeah.
Whereas FES, there are some other factors like
Yeah.
the female protagonist, extra story. We go into a little bit more detail on that in the Persona episode.
Yep.
So one of my favorite guys on Instagram, Takumi Senpai. Arnie, what's your favorite portable console?
I had to think about this one for a hot second, and I think gun to my head, it's always the 3DS or the DS Lite, and I think gun to my head, I'd pick the DS Lite. I think I like the form factor a little bit better, and I like the ability to play Game Boy Advance games.
Yep. I agree with you. For me, it's the DS Lite is probably my favorite one of all time. I play the crap out of my 3DS. Like, I really like my 3DS. I really, really like my Vita. I liked the OG Game Boy when I was a kid, right? And the Switch is obviously starting to get some love. But man, that Nintendo DS was responsible for so many fun gaming experiences for me. Like, and not just fun, but that special kind of fun where it's completely unexpected. Like Age of Empires on Nintendo DS.
Yep.
I had no expectations for that game. It is awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Let me ask you, Paul.
Inf-
Did you play Elite Beat Agents?
Yeah, Elite Beat Agents, same deal. Infinite Space is like such an
I've been
incredible...
wanting to play that game.
Oh,
forever.
dude.
That one and
Like-
Dark Tower. Or Dark Spire.
Yeah, the Dark Spire.
Isn't Infinite Space a Suda 51 game?
No, that's a Platinum game.
No.
Oh, it's a Platinum game. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm confusing the two. Yes, Platinum.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's that game that nobody talks about, and it is so good. Obviously, Etrian Odyssey. I mean, the DS was what introduced me to that series, and we've got Part 6 coming out in February, and I already can't wait.
Oh boy.
I know. What have you been playing lately, Paul? Well, let me tell you.
Let me tell you about Etrian Odyssey and Yuzo Koshiro, guys.
But yeah, Ozzy, what about you? Favorite portable?
Dude, it's basically between the 3DS or the Game Boy Advance SP 101. But I think ultimately it's the Game Boy Advance SP 101 simply because of the clamshell design, the beautiful screen resolution, and the fact that it's so tiny. Like, I know that you could play on the DS Lite, but the SP is just such a tiny, convenient system that it's my favorite system because the Game Boy Advance library is so fantastic. It has so many great games. But the 3DS is no slouch, man. I mean, I love that little system. I put so much time into that and Fire Emblem and, I have very fond memories of it. And even just playing like the Super Nintendo re-releases or like Gunstar Heroes on it. Actually, that's where I beat Gunstar Heroes, to be honest.
Oh, cool.
And with the 3D effect, which is fantastic. Like for those old school games, the 3D effect actually does quite well. So, it's gonna be sad when Nintendo doesn't have their own dedicated handhelds anymore because I really do think that they have done some great things with them. And there's a different type of gameplay when you have a dedicated handheld system that doesn't have the same graphical capabilities of a console.
Yeah.
And it leads to different gameplay and experience. So it's going to be very interesting to see the next Fire Emblem and how it plays and those types of games that have traditionally been on the handhelds.
Yep. Masa?
I love all the Nintendo handhelds, but I would have to go with the 3DS simply because it has like so many of my all-time favorite games, like Fire Emblem Awakening. I love all the Pokemon games. Super Mario 3D Land, A Link Between Worlds, and so on. It's not I'm not sure if the 3DS games will age that well. But yeah, it's absolutely my favorite. And it's actually one of my most played consoles. I have put like thousands of hours into all these games. So, yeah.
I will say,
I'm not surprised.
Strangely enough, specifically on Instagram, people love the Game Boy Micro. I've never heard anybody sing the praises of the Game Boy Micro as much as I see and hear about it on Instagram all the time.
Well, I would say the thing about the Micro is that it's not I have two of those and I love them, except when it comes to actually like playing games. Like the screen is great, the screen is amazing, but it's just too small. But the console looks cool, and there's like so many different models or color variations, so it's very collectible. And I would say that's like the main thing about it, like rather than actually like playing on it.
Okay.
Cool. I also agree with Ozzy in that the SP101, like that form factor, I think is probably the best one we've ever had for a portable system. Like that ability to fold into that really tiny clamshell and then just pop open and be able to play your GBA games. I still use it. Like I do a lot of backpacking. And if it's like a super lightweight trip where I really, really have to pack light, I always bring a game system because like it doesn't matter. I'm a huge nerd, right?
Yeah.
But like I still pull out my SP101 for those like super light trips. Like I'll pull out the SP101 and like 2 games. And as I'm falling asleep in the tent, I've got this super lightweight little system. Awesome.
Okay.
And great battery life too, never mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Even with the backlit screen.
Yeah, exactly. Masa, I think I know what your answer is going to be, but One Up Mushroom 88 asks, what is your favorite Zelda game?
The CDI titles.
How dare you?
Thank you, Masa.
It had to be done. Okay, so my serious answer is, of course, Breath of the Wild. Like, I have said many times that it's one of my all-time favorite games, but also I consider it the best game that I've ever played. So, yeah, the end.
Yeah, it's like, for me, it's also Breath of the Wild, right? And it's funny because I read an interesting article the other day about Ocarina of Time, and its effect on video games and how it's the highest rated game of all time on Metacritic, right? But like, I played Ocarina of Time and I've played Breath of the Wild, and I played them both in the time. Like, it's not like I played Ocarina of Time 10 years after it was released and I'm like, wow, this looks like shit, right? I played it when it was released. And I don't know, man, Breath of the Wild just grabbed me in a way that Ocarina of Time didn't. And like, I don't know what it is. Like, do we think it's because Ocarina was released and there were still a lot of kids playing and a lot of kids grew up with it? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think that's definitely part of it. I just think that when Ocarina came out, like in the context of where consoles were at that time, I think it did things that people had never seen on consoles before. And just given the time, obviously there's a generation of people that this was, if not their first Zelda game, definitely like the one they played that impacted them the most. But I think it was a time and place sort of thing where it came out at the right time in video games where people were ready for something like this, and it really impressed.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I would
Ozzy?
say favorite Zelda game, it's Breath of the Wild. I mean, there's no other way I can say that game. It's just such a culmination of everything that Zelda's meant to be. But just because I know Breath of the Wild is kind of like the popular hot take, I have a very special soft spot for Link's Awakening. It's just one of those games that if you played it at the time, and even if you play it nowadays, it's so charming and so different from every other Zelda game in terms of its story. It's very surreal and it's very quirky. It doesn't feel like A Link to the Past, which is more serious. It doesn't feel like Ocarina of Time. And, it's the soundtrack is great. The dungeons are great. It was the first It was the first game that I had for the Game Boy together with Kirby's Dreamland. And I guess we're reminiscing about the Game Boy quite a bit today. And to this day, it's the only game I brought from Cuba from my pilgrimage. When I migrated to the United States. And I still have it. And it's yellowed and it's old. But it's the only game I still have. So, it's hard to go against that, But Breath of the Wild, I mean, that's my favorite one. But Link's Awakening will always hold a very, very special place in my heart.
Yeah, to be honest, like, I'm a huge Zelda fan, of course, as a Nintendo fan. But if there's like one Zelda game that I really, really would love to see a modern remake of, that would be Link's Awakening.
Yeah,
because, it's such a unique title and I feel like a lot of people have forgotten about the game.
I think that if you played it originally, there's no way you could have forgotten about it. It's just most of the people that love Zelda came of age during Ocarina of Time, as we discussed.
Yeah.
They didn't look before that. And the Super Nintendo, people, a lot of people played Link to the Past. And the original Zelda is the original Zelda. So if you didn't grow up before Ocarina of Time, it's hard for you to remember Link's Awakening, even though there was a DX version that came out in 1999. But I think it's still a fantastic game. And low-key, a dark horse contender for best Zelda game of all time. So I think it's better than Link to the Past, perfectly honest.
That's
cool.
That's interesting, because I have my own contender for best Zelda game.
You're going to say Zelda 2.
No, that is... I will talk about Zelda 2, but as a person who's played a lot of Zelda games and finished not very many, my favorite Zelda game is A Link Between Worlds. That game... I really, really enjoyed. That was another one that, I think I finished it within like a week or less. I could not stop playing it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
When I was playing it, it was also one of those, like, I remember exactly when I was playing it. It was during the World Cup, so I would spend all day that summer just watching soccer games and playing A Link Between Worlds. So I really, really enjoyed that one. And then I was gonna say, the real hot take is I really like Zelda 2. I think Zelda 2, it gets a lot more props now, because I think people recognize that it's not, very different, obviously, from the general Zelda formula, but a very good game all as a package.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I loved Zelda 2.
Yeah.
I never finished it. I made it to the end and never finished it, and it still sticks in my craw to this day. I could have mentioned that on the hardest game you've played and beaten had I actually beaten it. Because that's another one. That game is tough, man. All right, cool. You know what? Let's do one more here real quick. Ozzy, do you want to tell the story of how the podcast was started? Ninja Artorias asked us how it was started. This man wants to know. I think we need to deliver.
Yeah.
Well, actually, so that we can put this to rest, I was actually on a peyote pilgrimage in the West.
I thought that it was that one night at the band camp.
And then, as I was in this big peyote spiritual trip, I realized, oh my God, I really like that Paul's Game Room guy. Or as he was called then, 8-Bit Yarns.
Bring back 8-Bit Yarns. Bring back 8-Bit Yarns.
I won't be doing that.
Listen, I'll launch a petition. I'll launch a petition.
Right. Since you guys aren't going to be serious, I will actually tell the story. So the actual story is that this entire podcast is just Paul doing all the different voices.
Wow, could you imagine? And somehow I managed to do... there used to be a radio guy, Phil Hendry, who did that. He used to do a radio show where he would be himself as the host, and then he would also be his guest, and people would call in.
That's hilarious.
And dude, he was awesome, because what he'd do is he'd bring in someone with like a controversial point of view, and slowly as the episode went on, he would escalate it.
Oh my God.
Dude, like for example, there was an episode where the guest he had on the show was a guy who called the cops because his next door neighbor was growing zucchinis that were too large. And so, like, it starts off innocently enough, and people are calling, and they're obviously outraged. Like, what do you mean? He's like, you're calling the cops for that? That's ridiculous. And then about 20 minutes into the 1 hour show, it comes out that he starts admitting that the reason he hates the zucchinis is because they remind him of really large penises.
Oh my God.
And he thinks that they're obscene, right? And so then people start calling in like, what's wrong with you? Like, why do you think this, right? And then towards the end, he just goes like full on religious, and the zucchini is the tool of the devil and the whole thing, right? And again, he's doing himself as the host and himself as the guest, and
great.
people are calling in thinking that it's like an actual real guest. Dude, that guy was super talented.
Right.
And
well, let's put this to rest. I guess if I was asked, I mean, we were all talking, we were all on Instagram by then, and I remember Masa was one of the first people I followed, and one of the first people that followed me, and so we were just kind of like chatting it up every once in a while, and then one day we all started doing this whole partner thing. I already knew Paul. I mean, he was 8-Bit Yarns at the time, and I loved Paul's stories. His kind of shtick was that, he would tell yarns, but the problem was, as Paul has explained recently, not everyone outside of the North American region knows what a yarn is. So he would tell stories, and I had a super high opinion of both of them. And so eventually we had this like partner, thing, where like in Instagram, like you promote people that are partners with you or whatever. And, the first one I reached out to, like Masa was like, hey, I'm putting out an APB for like partners. And I was like, dude, I'm in. And Paul was like, dude, I'm in. And then I don't know how Arnie got into the picture, but eventually Arnie was also
Masa.
Arnie was also in. And so he eventually also became a partner. And so, Arnie, his 3 partners were Paul, Masa, and me. And my 3 partners were Paul, Masa, and Arnie. I think Paul was already cool by then, so he had more partners. And Masa had like 20 partners instantaneously. I mean, that's just how it is. But because of that, we just, kind of like shot the shit around with each other, and we just kind of talked every once in a while. But then one day Arnie sent me, like, we all knew, I was playing Persona 4 at the time, and we all knew how big of a Persona fan we all were. And Arnie sent me, I think it was Reach Out to the Truth, a remix, and it just like took me back. And so I looped in the other guys, and we just started, this thread with Paul, Masa, and Arnie and me. And we just started talking. At the time, we called ourselves the International Retro Mafia, which was really dumb, but but we would blow up, like our phones, just like talking about random stuff. And I think it was like about a few weeks after that, after we were talking, that Masa was like, "Hey guys, I've always been interested in doing a podcast." And I was like, "Shit, I'm in." And Arnie was like really in. And then, we had the job of convincing Paul. So, Paul was very hesitant at first. I think because he had already done a YouTube show, and he was just like, I know how these things go, like it's a lot of work and stuff like that. And I could definitely sense that he was like, I don't know if I can commit to this right now, but I don't know how, but we eventually convinced Paul.
I think it helped that we kidnapped his wife and started blackmailing him.
Masa, I didn't want to say that in the podcast, dude. This is evidence that can be used against us later, and we still might need Paul. I'm
this
still
is
keeping
why
her.
Paul owns 51% of the company.
Yeah, she's still in the basement, dude. So come on, don't worry, Paul. She's being fed 3 times a day, so it's all good. But all things being serious, So January, like around December, we started like intently like conceptualizing what the podcast would be. Mm-hmm. And so the question was, what should we name ourselves? And I know that little factoid that no one knows, our first name that we consider, Arnie, what was it, like One Life Clear or something like that?
It was like, I think it was something like that. Cause
One LC, like One LC or something.
Oh yeah,
like
that was it.
Yeah,
I was
LC.
reading on arcade concepts and trying to find like cool sounding words that like were video game related.
Yeah, but I think that we weren't completely sold on that. But just so that you guys know, Arnie's not only like our social media overlord, but he's also a resident namer of everything that we do. So he's literally named everything that we have, going from Region Free Pocket,
namer.
Region Free Radio. All of that is Arnie. Like, we just, whenever we need to come up with something, it's like, Arnie, what name should we come up with? And he's actually the one that came up with the Region Free Gamers. And
I remember, like, when he mentioned that, we were all like, yeah, that's it. Like, that's the perfect name.
Like, that's it. Yeah, we were like, we don't have to even think about it anymore. Like, that's what is gonna be it. And yeah, January of 2017, 2018, that's when we had our first episode, and it was kind of a retrospective back at the games of 2017. So yeah, that's our origin story, basically. And then we all gain superpowers.
Yeah, and there's gonna be a movie adaptation of this story and a book soon.
Lord. I want to be played by Ray Liotta.
Well, I want Bradley Cooper to play me, and I want him to sing in country twang,
Oh my god. You guys are picking all the good-looking guys. That means Danny DeVito is going to play me, isn't it?
For sure.
I want to get some, like, random dude who's, like in movies often, like, when you have Finland, like, these people don't actually speak Finnish, and I want me to be played by some, like, let's say, like, random European guy who then speaks German as Finnish.
Masa.
You know what, Masa? I can one-up you. I think you should be played by Chow Yun-fat. And it should make no sense whatsoever.
Masa, I have a listener question from you, me being the listener. How tall are you, dude?
180.
I don't know what that means.
That's like 6 feet or something.
It's like maybe 5'11", 5'10".
Because I imagine everyone in Finland are just giants. Like, that's just my impression of Finland. So it makes sense that we would have you played by Danny DeVito or someone like that. That would be interesting.
Let me tell you, one positive thing about Nepal is that I was average height there.
You were a giant amongst men.
Maybe even a little bit taller.
Yep.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I didn't have to look up at people all the time. It was awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm about your height, Arnie. I mean, Masa. So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's our origin story, guys. So now you know, whenever you need to look up our origin story, go for this episode and listen to an hour and 40 minutes of us talking about video games, and then you can listen to us tell our origin story.
Cool. And I think on that we should wrap it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what? As usual, everybody, thanks so much for listening. Again, as we mentioned at the top of the episode, if you want to leave a rating or a review on the Apple Podcast app or whichever app you use, it'd be greatly appreciated. I guess where we can find each other, Arnie.
You can find me exclusively pretty much on the Region Free Gamers Instagram at Region Free Gamers. We also have a Twitter at Region Free Gamer, where you can reach us there. But mostly on Instagram. I have a personal Instagram too. Welcome to the game. Welcome the number 2 the game. But I don't use it that much.
Yeah, we made Arnie just completely forgo his personal Instagram because we're like, no, you have to be committed. So we basically forced him, and so we keep him in a dungeon. Actually,
I have more friends on my Region Free Gamers. And as I've previously explained, I can also get away with saying controversial statements and just saying it's Paul or Masa or something, which is also a benefit.
Yep.
How about you, Ozzy?
You can find me at Shadow of the Collector. I think there are periods in between. So that's all I'm going to leave it at because I'm not going to explain it completely. But yeah, Shadow of the Collector.
Masa.
You can also find me on Instagram, and my handle is MasaCharvinen09.
Awesome. And I'm on Instagram, Pauls_game room. And that's it for today. Again, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right. See you guys.
Absolutely. Peace out.